I grew up speaking Italian, and I know for all of you who speak a foreign language, you will agree that it deepens your understanding of other countries and other cultures, of their history and their worldviews. It's a deep level of understanding that is crucial to gathering and assessing intelligence. Within 5 years, my goal is to double the number of collectors and analysts who are proficient in a foreign language. Mission-critical languages, such as Chinese, Arabic, Urdu, Pashto, are highest priorities. We will hire more people with these languages, and we will dramatically transform language training at the CIA in order to reach our goals. Every officer, ultimately in analysis and operations, should be trained in some kind of foreign language. The second workforce initiative I focused on is diversity. We're redoubling our efforts to recruit, to retain, and to develop officers from every race, religion, culture, educational background. It's important to our ability to operate throughout the world. We have to look like the face of the world that we're dealing with. At the CIA, diversity of the workforce equals diversity of thought. It's fundamental to producing good intelligence. A major goal is to increase minority hiring so that the agency moves beyond the 30% minority, moves towards, rather, a 30% minority employee ratio within our department. We're at roughly about somewhere around 20%. We need to get to another 10%. About a third of our new hires already are from minority communities, and I think that's going to rise. A big part of this will be the expansion of national origin hiring, first and second generation Americans from ethnic communities, such as Arab Americans, Chinese Americans, Hispanic Americans, and so on. The end state should be a CIA, as I said, that looks like the nation we serve and the world we engage in. It's the right thing to do, and it's essential to our mission. I can assure you that the men and women of the CIA are focused on the missions that I talked about and on making the agency more effective for the future. They are smart, dedicated public servants, and frankly, many of them are quite young. Over one-third, I should say more than that, over one-half of the workforce at the CIA came on after 9/11. We get about 150,000 applications a year, and every time a James Bond movie comes out, we get even more. They're putting their lives on the line without any expectation of public recognition. They are very much silent warriors, and that's what my son called them after serving in Afghanistan. I'm extremely proud of them, of their patriotism, their ability to stay focused on their jobs, and most importantly, their contribution to the nation's security. As I said, this is a challenging time in our democracy. It's a challenging time for our president. In my lifetime, I have not seen so many serious issues confronting this nation at home and abroad. I often told the students at the Panetta Institute that we govern in our democracy by leadership or by crisis. This is a time in our history when the leadership of a nation is being tested as to whether courage or crisis will drive policy. Our forefathers passed to each generation the duty to lead in order to keep the torch of freedom bright and safe. For those of us at the Central Intelligence Agency, that is not just our duty. It is our solemn pledge to a government of, by, and for all people. Thank you.
Our thanks to Leon Panetta, Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, for that very thoughtful presentation. Now we have an almost overwhelming number of questions, and so let's try to fit in as many as we can. Let's start with that question of trust that you mentioned. Trust being essential for the intelligence community to work, and efforts to restore trust. There are a number of questions along those lines from the audience, but let me just summarize them by asking you, what steps are you taking to restore trust with Congress, with the American people, and so forth?
Well, I always found throughout my public career that the most important thing to do in public service is to be straight with the people that you deal with. And number one, that's what I'm trying to do, is to be very direct and honest with the President, with those that I have to deal with in the White House, with those I have to deal with in the Congress, and frankly, with those that I deal with at the CIA. It's important to be direct, to be honest, not to try to hedge or to try to hide what is taking place. And I've always found that that's a pretty good rule. When I represented the district that I had the honor of serving in the Central Coast, I always found that, oftentimes you're going to take a vote that will displease people. But if they think you're casting that vote because you truly believe it's the right vote, even if they don't agree with you, they will in the end respect you. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do at the CIA. They're not going to agree with all the things we do. They're not going to agree with many of the challenges that we have to face and how we're facing them. But I only ask that they respect the fact that we are approaching those challenges in an honest and forthright way, and we are doing what we believe is right for the country.
There are a couple questions just factually about how you work. How much FaceTime do you get each week with the President?
The President, particularly over the last few weeks on these reviews of Afghanistan and Pakistan strategy are involving sessions that can sometimes stretch 3 and 3.5 hours at a time. So I've gotten plenty of FaceTime with the President of the United States as a result of that. Normally, outside of those kinds of reviews, I will meet with the President once or twice during the week, and sometimes more, depending on whether or not there's a particular crisis or concern that he has. So I feel very comfortable with the relationship with the President. I think, as importantly, it's important to work through the National Security Council, which basically serves as his tool to develop approaches for him as he confronts the various issues that he has to deal with in foreign affairs.
Admiral Dennis Blair was here recently at the Commonwealth Club, and one person would like to know, what is the relationship between the CIA and the Director of National Intelligence? How do those two entities work together?
As you know, the Director of National Intelligence was established following 9/11 because of the concerns that came out of some of the intelligence failures and the failure to share information. And at the time, the Congress, as it sometimes will do, does not develop clear lanes in the road as to how the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, and the CIA and the rest of the intelligence community can operate. So for a period of 5 years, there's oftentimes been conflicts in that relationship. Having said that, both Admiral Blair and I have a good relationship. We talk with each other. We try to ensure that we communicate on the issues he's confronting. There is a responsibility here. There clearly is a responsibility for a Director of National Intelligence of coordinating the intelligence community. There are some 16 agencies that are part of our intelligence arena: NSA, FBI, some of our imagery agencies that are involved. So there are a number of those, the DIA at the Pentagon. Those agencies need to be coordinated. We need to develop intelligence priorities for the President. We need to share information. On an issue like cybersecurity, it's extremely important that the Director of National Intelligence be able to provide guidelines as we deal with that kind of issue, because it has so many cross-cutting elements throughout the intelligence community. At the same time, those of us who are within the intelligence community have to have the operational authority to do our job, to operate with our station chiefs, to do the foreign liaison that's necessary, to do the covert actions that are necessary. So those lanes in the road need to be there, and at the present time, we have asked the National Security Council and the Vice President to try to define those paths so that we can operate better for the future, and I'm confident that that's going to happen.
How are you working to improve the reliability of intelligence in comparison with possibly flawed intelligence in prior years?
That, people ask me, what keeps you up at night? That's one of the issues that keeps me up at night, is to make sure that the information that we are providing really does represent the most accurate intelligence that we can provide. Now, as you can understand, we will sometimes get information